All right, Priscilla, you're ready.
Thank you, Tasha. Good morning, everyone. We will now start the September 23rd, 2020 board meeting for the Nashville Farmers Market. And Alex, at this time, I will go ahead and defer the meeting to you regarding the virtual meeting.
Alex, we can't hear your audio. Alex, we're unable to hear your audio. We're still having technical difficulties hearing you, Alex, so
Tasha, I could read the information regarding the WebEx login and then defer it to him if we need to.
Is mine? That's mine. I was.
Just sent another link to
Angela.
Justin Owen for finance. He said he didn't, so I sent him kind of like catch all of them.
Okay, can you do the same to Angela Crane Jones? She was a board member, or is a board member. I can do it to Angela, just right here from my screen.
I can send you this link. You want to forward you this link?
Yeah, she's at A Jones at NBIC. NBICONLINE.com. LINE.com.
Okay. A Jones at NBICOnline.com.
Yes. Okay, folks, we're going to get Angela back on, and it looks like she is in the attendee list now. She just popped in.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to panel. Dustin's in. What about this Diego?
Yes, Diego should be in. Okay,
Dustin's in there.
I haven't seen Alex pop back in, but he has sent me, Priscilla, he has sent me the language for the motion. So I think when you're ready to resume the meeting, I can read the language of the motion, and then you'll just need someone to state their name and move the motion, and then roll call the second and the vote. Okay, so let's try this again, Priscilla.
All right. Thank you, Tasha. So we will go ahead and move forward with the meeting for today. And I will go ahead and defer to you with the language that Alex has sent you regarding the WebEx meeting.
Thank you, Priscilla. Per our Metro Legal Counsel, this body needs to make a motion that the proposed agenda constitutes essential business of this body, and that meeting electronically is necessary to the health, safety, and well-being of Tennesseans in the light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Is there a motion?
I so move. This is Brenda Butka.
I second. This is Tandy Wilson.
Thank you, Brenda and Tandy. And we will now do a roll call for that vote. And I, Priscilla Norman, as well. Yes.
I, Brenda Buck, yes.
I, Tandy Wilson, vote yes.
Angela, could we get your vote?
Did you hear me?
Okay, Angela, we can hear you. Okay, Angela, we can hear you.
So I need to repeat it. Angela Crane Jones, I vote yes.
Got it.
Angela.
Angela.
Hello. We will now move forward with the meeting. We're getting an echo. Okay. The meeting will take place via WebEx. Please call 415-655-0002. And when prompted for the meeting, access the code and enter 146-815-1717, followed by the pound when prompted to indicate that you are an attendee. If the link does not work, go to nashville.webex.com and enter 146-815-1717 in the Join Meeting text box and hit enter. Fill in your information on the right-hand side, enter the password, which is Metro, and then click Join Now. If you would like to make any public comment, please use the comment line during the event at 629-255-1963. And we will move forward with the announcements. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Farmers Market Board today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. The appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the board's decision to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Please be advised that you should contact your own independent legal counsel. Public comments. Individuals requesting to address the board will be limited to 3 minutes unless granted more time by the board chair. Each person authorized to speak is expected to state his or her name, the address, and the organization represented, if any. And if the speaker reads from prepared text, please provide a copy to the board staff. Do we have any comments at this time? We will move forward for the approval of the August 26, 2020 regular meeting minutes. May I get a motion for the approval of the 2020 minutes for August?
This is Brenda Buck. Move.
This is Tandy Wilson. I second.
All right, thank you, Tandy and Brenda. Do we need to also do another roll call for that, Tasha, at this time?
Yes,
Testing,
please,
this
for
is
all
Alex.
motions.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that again as well. I, Priscilla Norman, yes, I approve.
I, Brenda Buck, approve.
Tandy Wilson, approve.
I think Angela's on mute.
I, Angela Crane Jones, approve.
Thank you, everyone. We will move forward with the financial overview, the cost reduction impact, and the fee waivers. Tasha, thank you.
Thank you so much. We are going to break this part of the agenda up between Maria and myself. She's going to go over the financial overview for August, and then I'll review the cost reduction impact. So, Maria?
Okay, good morning. I'm going to hit some of the highlights on this financial report. It's going to alter a little bit every month as I figure out the best way to relay this information to you all. You should have received a copy of the FY21 August financial report in your packet. We'll start off with our revenue for August. In August, we made $22,333.86 in the farm sheds, and $71,673.47 in the market house and garden center, for a total of $94,007.33. I also included our year-to-date numbers, and right now we're sitting at $169,601.11 for the year. At this time, we still have $86,082.84 in outstanding rent from the market house. About half of that is supposed to hit this fiscal year. We have about $46,000 that is left over from last fiscal year that we are working on collecting throughout this year. The next section of the financial report is the cost reduction analysis. I pulled out a few of our expense accounts to show you some of the areas that we are working on reducing our costs and monitoring costs for this year that may have been over budget in previous years, or just areas that we have extra room in our budget. So we're just trying to keep you all updated on where we're at on those. Some of the expenses look a little bit funny because they're missing some charges. So as you can see, overall, we're under budget in salary so far this year. We're under budget in security right now due to a credit from last fiscal year, as well as our utilities. There are some utilities that haven't yet hit this month or this past month. Overall, we're sitting at $80,659.60 for August and $118,098.72 year to date. As you can see, our revenue right now is exceeding our expenses, but we are operating obviously very close to where our expenses often surpass our revenue very quickly. As far as our emergency response, we have not been spending a lot right now for COVID-19 and the tornado project, but you can see those inception to date numbers of about $143,000 for COVID-19 relief or response at our facility, as well as $648,000 spent for the tornado build back project. That project had a projected total of about $735, and we're working on wrapping up that project as well as that those expenses that will be charged to that BU. We also did not spend any money out of our fund balances in August, and the balances are the same as the balances that were presented last month. About $150,000 in our FY17 capital project fund, about $35,000 due to a credit in our HVAC replacement project, and then our special fund that supplements our revenue for our facility and operating budget is currently at $700,698.56. So like we described in the last board meeting, that money is used to supplement our revenue to meet our operating expenses. Some notes at the bottom I included was just the credits pertaining to security services and the lack of charges from electric and gas that I'll be looking into. That wraps up the financial report, and I'm going to turn over to Tasha for a discussion on our cost reduction impact.
Thank you, Maria. So also in your packet that went out to board members, we wanted to share some feedback that we have communicated to the mayor's office. As you all know, there is a referendum that is calling to repeal the tax increase, as well as a variety of other items that are held within covenants of our Metro Charter. And each department was asked to identify their services that were mandated in the charter, as well as the impact of what a 35% budget reduction would cost or would do to our department. So I want to make sure that I share this information with the board. We did provide 2 scenarios to the mayor's office. The first scenario would be that the Nashville Farmers Market implementation of short and long-term goals to achieve financial sustainability as a Metro chartered entity would be greatly impacted. A 35% reduction of operating funds would impair our ability to achieve desired revenue generation results, as well as require us to eliminate 2 full-time employees, reduce our hours of operation, further reduce critical contractual services to provide security, janitorial, and refuse services, and would also eliminate the remaining balance of the facility maintenance and marketing services funds. Another scenario that we provided would be if our operating reserve fund was also eliminated in this effort, which would have a much more devastating impact on our organization. The Nashville Farmers Market, again, would be impacted by not being able to achieve our financial sustainability efforts as a Metro chartered entity. It would further reduce our operating and capital funds, devastating the board and the staff's capacity to achieve such plans, as a lack of budget authority and funding would prohibit abilities to retain any staff, safely operate and maintain the facility, recruit and retain merchants, collect rental fees, and provide marketing services, resulting in short or long-term closure of the Nashville Farmers Market. This, of course, would have a devastating impact on services provided by the Nashville Farmers Market to residents in Davidson County and surrounding communities, as well as disrupt the local supply chain for farmers, producers, wholesalers, restaurants, institutions, and nonprofit organizations. Additionally, the closure of the Nashville Farmers Market would impact accessibility to fresh, healthy food in our community, impacting community, and have a result of impacting community health indicators. Lastly, the closure of the Nashville Farmers Market would eliminate retail space for more than 150 family farms and small businesses, including immigrant, minority, and veteran-owned businesses, therefore resulting in closure of their business and loss of sales tax revenue. Obviously, neither one of those scenarios is on path or course with the direction that the board or the staff have been moving in for many years. But I do feel that it's very important as an organization that we recognize the difficult circumstances that Metro government is in right now, including the Nashville Farmers Market, should the repeal move forward. So I just, I'm happy to take a pause in our financial overview and answer any questions that any of you might have regarding this. Okay, well, I'm not hearing any questions about that, so I'll happily move forward. There are no fee waivers to report at this time. Maria did touch on the past due fund balance, or past due rent balance, which is $86,082.84. And we will be discussing several scenarios regarding our market house rental program and any deferment options for our merchants later on in the agenda. So that would conclude our financial update for the month of August.
Tasha, this is Brenda. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I actually do have a question. Can we post or disseminate information about the effects of the potential tax vote inside the market? In other words, can we?
Yes, we can. So this can become public information at this point. We have submitted this scenario, both of these scenarios, to the mayor's office, as have other departments across Metro. And they are collecting all of that information from Metro departments. And then, and Diego is on the line. Maybe he can share a little bit more about how that information will be disseminated in terms of Metro-wide communications. But should we be contacted by a member of the media or need to communicate this information to the public, we are readily available to share that information.
I'm just thinking maybe we should have some big, very simple signs in the market.
Okay. I mean, I think that's definitely something that we can evaluate how we move forward with communicating the impact of this. You know, I would love for the board to have discussion about that. Obviously, you know, we don't want to scare people. But I think that if we feel the need to communicate the impact, we can do so with on-premises signage as well as communications through our website and media relations.
Yeah, I think we need to do that because all you hear out washing around the community is, oh my God, they're gonna increase our taxes. That's all I hear. So anyway, I'm.
Hello, Diego. This is Priscilla. I just wanted to ask to see if you had anything to add to what Tasha had just shared with us. You could do that at this time, please.
Thank you. Yes. So good morning, everyone. Very briefly, we are collecting all that information. I am actually, as we speak, continuing to run that analysis. The way that we've been proceeding with other departments is that either if you have your PIO or any mechanism of how you put information out and talk to the media, the only thing that we would ask is to make sure that we are aligned in messaging to not go too far or I guess out of step with the way that we're messaging that. But departments have individually driven their own strategies and how to put that information out there because as Brenda, I think you were commenting there that there is not necessarily a counter message to contextualize the need for that property tax, right? So in short, you are more than welcome, of course, to go and pursue any strategy that you see fit. I would just ask that you contact our comms team to make sure that the messaging is consistent and has been vetted and that we are not putting misinformation out there. That would be the only feedback I would provide.
Thank you, Diego.
If any other questions come up, please feel free to contact me or anyone or comms team at the mayor's office. We're happy to help.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, Tasha, we will move forward with what's on the agenda next since we did not have any fee waivers. We will move forward with the fresh food voucher program discussion and approval.
Aye.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is Heather Hoke with the program coordinator with the Nashville Farmers Market. We're really excited to announce our brand new fresh food voucher program, especially considering that it is Hunger Action Month. Tasha worked hard to get us a grant through the Second Harvest Food Bank for $100,000 in food assistance funds to be used with farmers at the Nashville Farmers Market. The program uses federal CARES funding to provide aid for those impacted by COVID-19 in many different industries, including the hospitality and live music industries. The hope is that it will prove beneficial for everyone involved and evolve into a continuously funded voucher program that will combat food insecurity in the area while helping support our farmers as well. So it actually has the opportunity to be a really impactful program. The way this iteration works is the food bank is working with local organizations to assess need and disperse 1,000 coupon books, each with 10 $10 coupons in them. So far, we have 7 vendors signed on with more pending. Are there any questions?
Not at this time. Thank you, Heather. And Tasha, I see that there's an approval here on the agenda regarding the voucher program. Was there further discussion needing to be had regarding that program, any update?
So, you know, all of this activity took place between our last board meeting and this meeting. We have since moved forward very quickly with Second Harvest and Metro government to be able to get the funds appropriated to the Nashville Farmers Market, because these funds need to be expended by contractual deadline with Second Harvest and Metro government. So at this time, the contract has been executed between Metro and Second Harvest, and we also have received approval through late file resolution sponsored by several council members, including Councilman and Codes Fair and Farmers Market Chairman Tom Cash, who is calling in today. I think at this point, what we really need from the board in terms of action is a motion for approval of that contract, which you all received a few weeks ago via email, so that we have on record that this is an approved initiative by the board and that we are accepting those funds, which is $100,000.
Okay, Tasha, thank you. And may I get a motion for approval of the for the $1,000 for, excuse me, $100,000 for the fresh food voucher program?
This is Brenda Buckeye. So
this is Angela Crane Jones. I second.
We'll do the roll call voting as well for this one. I, Priscilla Norman, I approve.
Brenda Buckeye, I approve.
Angela Crane Jones, I approve.
I approve. Andy Wilson, I approve.
Thank you, everyone. And Tasha, we will go ahead and move forward with the COVID Small Business Impact Report and also the Small Business Relief discussion.
Thank you. Okay, folks, I do ask for you to bear with us. There's going to be a lot of information sharing over the next few minutes. We're going to break up this portion of the agenda into segments. The first thing we would like to do is hit some key highlights of the COVID Small Business Impact Survey, specifically focus on the market house feedback we received from that survey. And then after we share and discuss that, the staff has prepared numerous rent collection scenarios for the remainder of FY21 that we will walk you through each scenario and discuss the fiscal impact of that. And I also just want to remind everyone as we get started on this, we all know that COVID-19 has impacted our operations. It's also spurred a great amount of innovation for our organization. We have implemented a new online farmers marketplace that launched earlier this year. We responded very immediately to COVID-19 by organizing and implementing a drive-through market and curbside service options for our restaurants and retailers at the market. And then, of course, it's also spurred collaboration with organizations and nonprofit organizations such as Second Harvest to create this voucher program. There's a summary included in your packet that we're not going to deep dive in today, but it is a survey or questionnaire that Diego's team in the mayor's office put together to try to evaluate COVID-related changes in demand for services at each department. And so I would encourage the board to review that. What you'll find is that we are experiencing an increase in demand for locally produced, grown, and prepared foods. That is an indicator that Dr. Hatcher, the commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Ag, has reiterated and shared with farmers market managers on numerous calls that we've participated in over the past several months. We know that the demand and the awareness for local food is at an all-time high, and we have an opportunity to continue to engage in that messaging and find new ways to support farmers and retailers working in that space to reach directly to consumers through our farmers market, both online and in person. We also know that COVID-19 has had a significant impact on retailers and restaurateurs' ability to operate their business, both due to closures and economic conditions, as well as COVID-19 operating restrictions and requirements. So, we want to express that we are very much aware of the challenges that are not only facing our organization, but facing the businesses that are operating here in our community of the Nashville Farmers Market and surrounding neighborhoods. We needed to find a way to gather this information in a consistent fashion versus, just kind of walk-up feedback or email feedback. So our team evaluated surveys. David and I worked on this. We found small business survey tools that were being utilized by various companies and organizations in response to COVID to try to gather baseline information about how small businesses were being impacted. And we utilized questionnaires to develop a survey that was then distributed to all of our merchants over a 4-week period for us to be able to gather feedback. We gathered information based on how they had been impacted directly for their business in terms of their ability to operate. Had their sales been impacted? What were areas that they needed support or relief for? We evaluated or surveyed what they had applied for in terms of relief funding. And we also asked them questions about or did an assessment on what types of small business training they needed, what type of marketing tools were they using to promote their business, and then also gathered some general comments. You have this information in your packet, but I am going to hit a couple of highlights, and I want to share that we're using this information to drive actions that we're taking as a staff and an organization to help support these businesses. So first, I want to share that 77% of our market house vendors participated in the survey. We have 18 active businesses with one more on the way, with Succulent Vegan Tacos opening up in the next few weeks. So 14 of the 18 participated. 30% of our vendors reported that they did not fully close their operations while remaining open during our facility closure. And what those businesses did was that they shifted to curbside and or delivery models. 60% of our vendors did close, and they reopened their business in June of 2020 when the Market House reopened. And 10% of our vendors waited until July of 2020 to reopen their business. In addition, 36% of our vendors reported having to shut down since they reopened due to COVID-19. 80% of the vendors reported that their hours of operation were now between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. since reopening. And then 36% of our vendors reported having a contingency plan for their business. And of those vendors, they each documented what they considered their contingency plan to be in the survey. 70% of vendors reported changes to their operations due to COVID-19. 50% of the vendors reported that they were past due on rent. 75% of our vendors reported that they needed help with rent. 64% requested rent payment plans. 64% reported needing help with payroll, with 21% needing help with utilities, and 8% needing help with legal services. Even more telling, 55% of the vendors reported sales compared to a year ago being between 1 and 25% of their total sales each month a year ago. 20% reported sales being between 26 and 50%. 20% reported sales being between 51 and 75%, and only 5% reported sales being of 75 to 100%. So we can tell from this baseline data here that our Market House merchants are continuing to need assistance, and that directly correlates with the decline in their year-over-year sales information. In terms of COVID relief needs assessment, we really needed to understand where they were at, because as they're coming to us seeking relief or assistance from our organization, we needed to know what they were doing in terms of seeking the same type of relief from federal and state and local programs. 73% applied and received PPP relief funding. 73% applied for relief through their bank. 27% applied for loan forgiveness programs. 60% anticipate layoffs after their PPP expires. 36% applied for SBA EIDL, and 33% have received it. 57% applied for emergency grants, but then 64% reported receiving it. So we know we've got something off there. Maybe they selected that they received it, but didn't select that they had applied. 57% applied for the Tennessee Small Business Grant, and 38% have reported receiving it. 65% anticipate needing additional relief after loans and grants are exhausted. 50% are familiar with the tax deferral program. 29% are using it. 45% anticipate using it. 75% report needing help with rent. 64% need help with payroll. We also asked a variety of questions about the type of training that they need in response to operating their small business in a COVID environment. 21% declared that they would participate in small business workshops. 54% would participate in contingency planning workshops. 31% would participate in finance workshops. 23% would participate in legal workshops. 38% would participate in HR workshops. The marketing assessment provided information indicating that 65% utilized Facebook to promote their business, 50% utilize Instagram, 5% utilize Twitter, 50% have a website and are utilizing delivery programs, 5% use email marketing, word of mouth, printed materials, and paid social media, and then 1 to 2% utilize Google, Yelp, signage, coupons, or e-commerce. We did collect additional feedback where we asked for vendors to share any additional comments with us. 45% of the participants shared additional feedback. One comment was to request for small business support. One expressed concern about investing in marketing. 2 expressed concerns about acquiring debt due to COVID-19. 1 expressed that they would be able to pay rent but concerned about loss of tourism. And 1 expressed concern about closing at 4 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. So that is the summary of the survey data. Priscilla and I were able to go through the survey data deck last week and aggregated these averages to be able to help the board and the staff navigate these very difficult circumstances that we're all in. This survey data will also be utilized in our discussions when we meet with the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee tomorrow afternoon at noon to present our request for relief funding for the merchants at the Nashville Farmers Market, as well as funding for small business support and technical assistance. So I just want to take a pause and see if there's any feedback, discussion, or questions about the survey. Okay, I'm going to move along. Priscilla, are you okay with me moving to the rent relief scenarios?
Yes.
Okay. All right, you have this in your packet. We have prepared scenarios A, B, C, D, E, and F for the board to review today. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you the overview of the scenarios, including the fiscal impact. Once we're finished with reviewing these scenarios, the staff is asking the board to have a discussion about the scenarios and discuss how the board would like for us to proceed. What I want to remind you before we get started is that we have been discussing rent relief scenarios with the board for several months. And what we have been able to provide at this point are we waived rent. We waived 2 weeks of rent in March and waived a full month of rent in April for all of our merchants in response to COVID-19. When we reopened the facility, we began collecting rent on a monthly and daily basis at the Nashville Farmers Market, and we reopened the facility in May. Since that time, we have received a lot of feedback from our merchant community about their difficulty being able to pay their rent and retain a good standing status. And so we have been afforded an opportunity through discussions with the board to develop payment plans that allow vendors to pay their monthly rent and a portion of their past due rent throughout the first quarter of the fiscal year, which ends on September 30th of 2020. Maria has worked closely with the merchants that have requested payment plans and provided documented payment plans to them to be able to help them manage these payments, the additional payments that they're making each month for the rent that they have that they have pending past due. We are continuing to hear from our merchants that they are struggling to complete their past due payments. I know the board has received communication from merchants indicating this same concern. And we know that 75% of our merchants are reporting that they need relief assistance, and extenuating current economic conditions are causing their concern about the fragility of their business operating at the Nashville Farmers Market. So what we have done to create these scenarios is we've taken the variety of feedback that we've received from various stakeholders. This is not just a staff presentation. This includes information that has been shared with us by board members, by market house merchants, by elected officials, by individuals throughout metro government, as well as recommendations from the staff. So we are showing you a variety of options that have been discussed with us so that the board can evaluate each scenario and its impact to our organization and to the merchant community. Of course, these are difficult decisions. We understand that this is a very difficult time for our organization and the merchants. So with that said, I'm going to start with going through the various options, scenario A through F. Once we're finished, again, we will be looking for the board to make a motion to open for discussion on the rent relief scenarios. And then, of course, I think Alex will echo the need to, once you decide how you want to proceed as a board, we will need a motion on a specific scenario or amended scenario with a roll call vote if you're ready to make a decision today. Okay, so scenario A, any past due accounts as of October 1st of 2020 would receive a notice of default on October 1st with a 30-day notice to pay the past due amount in full or risk termination of their lease effective October 31st of 2020. The fiscal impact of scenario A would be that NFM would attempt to collect the past due amount of $62,000 of the 9 tenants currently past due, but this process would continue for several months, up to a year, and require additional support from Metro Legal. Termination of each tenant would impact the market offerings and consumer experience, impact rental income, and require management to expedite efforts to recruit and retain new tenants. A loss of existing tenants would result in an additional revenue loss of up to $227,000 in FY21 and require NFM to utilize the remaining balance in our operational reserve fund and further reduce expenses, including freezing 2 positions, reducing marketing expenditures, and limiting hours of operations as well as contractual services. Scenario B. Extend payment terms of current past due accounts to December 15th of 2020, providing terms that all accounts must meet monthly payment obligations and accounts must be current as of December 15th, 2020. Any account that remains past due after such date would be considered in default and termination of their lease effective January 31st, 2021. The fiscal impact note on this scenario is that extending the payment terms of existing payment plans would not have a significant impact on our operating budget or use of fund balance if all past due funds are received by the end of December 2020. Additional time will allow merchants to complete payments for past due amounts while also paying monthly rent. We anticipate that 3 to 5 merchants may not be able to complete their past due payments and will enter into default under terms with this extension. Loss of 3 to 5 tenants may result in additional revenue loss up to $120,000 in FY21 and require NFM to utilize our operational reserve fund and further reduce expenses, including freezing 2 positions and reducing marketing expenditures. Scenario C, extend the payment terms of the current past due accounts to May 15th of 2021, providing terms that all accounts must be met monthly. Providing terms that all accounts must meet monthly payment obligations and accounts will be current as of May 15th of 2021. Any account that remains past due after such date would be considered in default and termination of their lease effective June 30th of 2021. The fiscal impact of Scenario C includes extending the payment terms of existing payment plans to May, would require NFM to use our fund balance earlier in the fiscal year, as expenses will outpace revenue earnings sooner than projected. Additional time will allow merchants to complete payments for past due amounts while also paying monthly rent. We anticipate that 1 to 3 merchants may not be able to complete their past due payments and will enter into default under terms with this extension. Loss of 1 to 3 tenants may result in additional revenue loss up to $80,000 in FY21 and require NFM to utilize our operational reserve fund and further reduce expenses, including freezing 2 positions and reducing marketing expenditures. Scenario D, waive October 2020 market house rent and extend payment terms of current past due accounts to December 15th, 2020, providing terms that all accounts must meet monthly payment obligations and accounts will be current as of December 15th, 2020. Any account that remains past due after such date would be considered in default, and termination of their lease would be effective January 30th, 2021. The fiscal impact of Scenario D would be waiving an additional month of market house rent will reduce revenue earnings by approximately $70,000 in FY21 and require additional use of fund balance. Extending the payment terms of existing payment plans would not have a significant impact on our operating budget or use of fund balance if all past due funds were received by the end of December. Additional time will allow merchants to complete payments for past due accounts while also paying monthly rent. In this scenario, we anticipate that 1 to 3 merchants may not be able to complete their past due payments and will enter into default under terms with this extension. Loss of 1 to 3 merchants may result in additional revenue loss of up to $80,000 in FY21, and again, require us to use our operational reserve fund and further reduce expenses, including freezing 2 positions and reducing marketing expenditures. Scenario E, waive October 2020 rent, defer all rate step increases through June 30th of 2021, and extend payment terms of current past due accounts to December 15th. Providing terms that all accounts must meet monthly payment obligations and accounts will be current as of December 15th. Any account that remains past due after such date would be considered in default and termination of their lease effective January 30th, 2021. The fiscal impact of Scenario E would be waiving an additional month of market house rent and deferring all step increases would reduce revenue earnings by approximately $120,000 in FY21 and require additional use of fund balance while also impacting revenue and our ability to cover rising costs in future years. Extending the payment terms of existing payment plans would not have a significant impact on our operating budget or use of fund balance if all past due funds are received by the end of December 2020. Additional time will allow merchants to complete payments for past due amounts while also paying monthly rent. And in this scenario, we also see that 1 to 3 merchants may not be able to complete their past due payments and may enter into default under terms with this extension. A loss of 1 to 3 tenants may result in additional revenue loss of up to $80,000 in FY21. And again, require us to use our operational reserve fund and further reduce expenses, including freezing 2 positions and reducing marketing expenditures. Scenario F, waive 25% of market house rent for the remainder of FY21. Defer all step increase rent through June 30th, 2021, and extend payment terms of current past due accounts to December 15th, 2020, providing terms that all accounts must meet monthly payment obligations, and accounts will be current as of December 15th, 2020. Any account that would remain past due after such date would be considered in default and termination of their lease effective January 30th, 2021. The fiscal impact of scenario F includes waiving an additional 25% of market house rent and deferring all rate step increases will reduce revenue earnings by approximately $200,000 in FY21 and require additional use of fund balance while also impacting our revenue and our ability to cover rising costs in the future. Again, extending the payment terms of existing payment plans would not have a significant impact on our operating budget or use of fund balance if all past due funds are received by December 2020. Additional time does allow merchants to complete payments for past due amounts while also paying monthly rent. We do still anticipate that 1 to 3 merchants may not be able to complete their past due payments and will enter into default under these terms. Additional revenue loss for those 1 to 3 tenants may be up to $80,000 in FY21, and again, require us to utilize operational reserve funds and further reduce expenses, including freezing 2 positions and reducing marketing expenditures. These scenarios are comprehensive of the variety of requests, feedback, and ideas that have been submitted to the staff, and I believe to the board over the past few months. Obviously, there are significant implications to any of these plans to how we operate as an organization. There's also a significant factor to weigh about how it impacts the small business community operating at the market, as well as the consumer experience and the offerings available at the market. We're asking for the board's consideration as you weigh these choices to think about how we can continue to support small businesses operating at the market while also being good stewards of taxpayer dollars that are helping fund and support the Nashville Farmers Market. We're also asking you to weigh considerations about the impact of your decisions on the culture, the offerings, and the long-term sustainability and viability of the Nashville Farmers Market and its merchants. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Priscilla for you all to have your discussion.
Thank you, Tasha. And I would like to call a motion to discuss the options that have been presented to us for the fee waivers that will move forward.
This is Alex. I'm just, for purposes of the discussion, I don't think you guys have to have a motion unless someone's ready to make it. You can have some general discussion and then someone can propose a motion once you come to a consensus.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Brenda, can I just ask for some clarification?
Yes.
What's your question,
Yes.
Brenda?
So when you talk about waiving rent or decreasing rent, that would be for all the tenants, not just those in default. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So there are a variety of scenarios. There are scenarios A and B and C that are really specific to accounts that are past due. And it is specific to scenario A is following through with the payment plan terms that we initially discussed, with giving them 1 quarter to pay off their past due balance. And then scenario B is extending that term to December. And scenario C is extending that term to May. But then once you get into D, E, and F, you are talking about waiving rent either by 1 month or by a month and deferring step increases that are agreed upon within their leases, or by waiving 25% of rent for the remainder of the year and deferring the step increases that many of these businesses would be incurring starting in November through April of this fiscal year. So D, E, and F would impact all merchants. A, B, and C would only impact merchants with a past due account.
Thank you. That's how I read it, but I wasn't sure.
Hey, Tasha, this is Angela. Can you help me understand why we chose, what we suggested waiving the rent in October, which I would assume is still a month where people are making money versus a December or January waiving of rent?
So I believe your question was why October? That was actually a request that we received through merchant communications, was specific to October, so that because it is a revenue development month for them where they feel like they're going to have strong revenues, they felt like they could then apply those revenues to their past due accounts more quickly and get them paid off by December.
Can I ask your position? One other question. The freezing 2 positions, are there 2 positions that are open right now?
Yeah, we currently have 2 positions open. When I started here, we had a team of 6. We've always had 7 budgeted the last few years. Right now, we're currently at 4 and a part-time employee who is David. We are still planning on filling that position with a full-time person. But in these scenarios, we would not be able to afford the other 2 positions. For example, one of those other positions managed the Grow Local Kitchen. And then the other was our office coordinator, who would be assisting with any financial reporting as well as office operations. So it does limit some of our capacity to, perform different programming. I mean, we can only do so much with the small team we have to support the businesses. So that we don't really have a lot of, areas to play with in the budget. Really, salary and marketing is the most that we can control on this team that are not facility expensive.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So, Tasha, this is Angela. I have another question, and unfortunately, it kind of goes back to the impact survey. I couldn't get off mute earlier. In the needs assessment, it said 36% apply for the SBA EIDL. Is there a particular reason like more people didn't apply for the SBA EIDL?
Angela, this is Tasha. We were quite surprised with the survey results related to relief needs under the COVID relief needs assessment data. We were surprised that 100% of our merchants did not apply for many of these opportunities, including PPP, EIDL, and the Tennessee Small Business Grant. I zoned in on specific merchants that I saw a trend where they weren't applying for anything, or maybe they had only applied for one thing and hadn't applied for others. As you know very well, many of these COVID relief funds have a variety of qualifications and requirements that you have to adhere to. Feedback we got about PPP was that many individuals were concerned about the requirements of how to expend those funds within the timeline they were given. And then once there was an extension period offered, many of them felt more comfortable pursuing that particular fund, but we still only had 73% apply and receive it. In terms of the EIDL, that seems to be the lowest participation rate in terms of businesses applying for that. I think it's unfortunately, I think it's a knowledge issue where they're not knowledgeable about those opportunities or how to articulate their need in those application processes, which is why we've spent a great deal of staff resources and communication efforts with trying to communicate to the merchant community about these various opportunities. And in terms of the small business grant, the feedback that I got, particularly around the Tennessee Small Business Grant, was that your business had to be operating for a 1-year period in order for you to qualify for that grant. It was a relatively simple application process and a very quick deposit. Within usually a 10 to 14 day cycle, once you applied and got approved, you had the funds. But several of our businesses either didn't qualify for that small business program because of how their business was licensed in the state of Tennessee, or for the length of time that they had been licensed in the state of Tennessee. So an example would be Bella Nashville. Recently, Bella Nashville was sold to a new owner, and he took ownership of that business in February. Creating a new LLC for that business, and therefore doesn't qualify with any data from a year ago of year-over-year sales, indicating the impact of his business and his need for relief. Even though that business was existing pre-COVID, it's now existing under a new LLC and ownership. We've tried to help merchants that have provided feedback to us about their concerns or their capabilities or their anxiety about going through this application process. We've also had other merchants offer to assist by helping people go through the application process, help them get their paperwork together, help them run financial reports. But as you'll see from this survey, and as also indicated in their response to training needs, there is a deficit of technical knowledge of how to maneuver through this very complicated time and these various different processes and applications that businesses have to go through to get this relief funding. And, you know, our merchants are in great need, as are many small businesses, of additional support to help them maneuver through this.
Thank you for the explanation. It definitely makes sense. So then I guess my next question, well, not even a question, I guess it's a statement. My biggest concern, if we waive rent in October, which I understand it'll get them caught up, what's likely, you know, a slower season, which not go into default, they have to have everything, I'm assuming, caught up and their rent is current, you know what I'm saying, for November and December to not go in default, correct?
Correct. And then they have to stay current as they did previously.
Right. And so, you know, I work with business owners, you know, every day. And so my biggest concern is it waiving rent when they absolutely need it? And everything has, on their end, has been done to either seek EIDL, provided some type of, you know, when I say documentation, you know, like the because that would disqualify the gentleman, Bella, because it was purchased in February. Did we waive rent in December or January, where we have a better understanding if they're really going to be able to make it? Because we know, I mean, I feel strongly, I don't know, that January and February are going to be really slow months for everybody and anybody. And then my other suggestion or thought process is around definitely not increasing rent. You know, this is definitely not the time to, you know, increase rent. I know it doesn't fall into one of these scenarios, but I did stay up late trying to look and see what can we do to not have a organization, but how do we help small business? And then also for the ones that we do waive the rent or consider, you know, waiving the rent for later, some type of assistance, which the incubation center did receive funding under the CARES Act. So, you know, more than, you know, happy to have some of those apply, and our program will go live this Friday as worst case, but you can send those individuals over. And is it some type of condition, you know, like we waive rent, but we review their financials and really are, and see how we can help with their marketing firms.
Angela, I think that's great feedback. I just kind of want to summarize some of the potential amendments that you identified. So one of the items that you brought up was considering a rental waiver in January or February of 2021 instead of October. And then another potential amendment that you identified would be evaluating a condition for any merchant or all merchants receiving a rent waiver to be required to go through financial analysis through a third party such as the NBIC.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Brenda. Can I say a couple things? Your rent waivers apply to everyone, and I don't think you want to make your successful businesses go through an evaluation and clog up Angela's down there. So certainly some of these businesses need help, not all of them. And then if we waive the rent in January or February to postpone the time to consider them in default until after that time, is that correct? You couldn't use a December for initiating default.
I think that the board could put together an alternative scenario. You know, you can kind of plug and play these options, that if you wanted to waive rent in a different month and eliminate the step increase, I'm just kind of rolling up what I'm hearing, require anyone necessary to go through a financial analysis by a third party. You could then also continue to indicate when the past due payoff deadline is, whether that's December, whether it's
Right.
September, December, May, but it needs to be within this fiscal year in order for it to have an impact on our fiscal year revenues. The further you push that deadline out, the more impact it has on our immediate use of fund balance. And we typically begin using fund balance in either December, January, or February, depending upon fall revenues and expenses.
Thank you for that, Tasha. So can we, you know, waive rent in December? It's a, you know, a Christmas gift. We know it's likely, you know what I'm saying, definitely going to be slower than last year. You know, we're praying with marketing that the sales are not as down, and move the past dates to January or February at the latest?
February.
Who's saying?
Would February work, Bria?
Yes.
I mean, any choice you make is going to have an impact on our decisions going forward. I don't know. I honestly, most of these scenarios are hypothetical. It's really hard to even say if 1 month is going to save everybody. I mean, it was really hard to even put the scenarios together. You just can't project where people are at.
Well, and I guess the reason, I mean, y'all did an excellent job. I mean, I read over these last night. You know, my concern was just waving in October, if that's a revenue making month. Hey, they can pay their rent and get caught up in December and January if rent is low. And we can help them make some decisions on what next steps look like.
So I just wanted to point something out really quick. This is Maria. If you take a look at those market house account balances in your packet, I kind of wanted to point out a few things on there. So I broke the past due rent up between FY20 and FY21, just so you kind of understand if people are able to pay their current rent. So on this report, we have 11 vendors with a current balance. 2 of them only owe September, and they have been paying monthly consistently. So that's why we presented the number of 9. Of those 9, we have 3 that only have past due rent from FY20. And the reason that that's significant is because they're actually able to make their current rent payment. They're just not able to make more than their current rent payment. So I would say there's only 6 actual merchants we're concerned about as far as keeping up with their current rent. They kind of have a mix of rent that's current and a little bit from last fiscal year. But I think it's significant because you can kind of see who's maintaining that. I would say, I mean, I'm confident making the statement that the majority of our merchants are actually able to make their monthly rent payment. I mean, 6 of 19, I don't think that that's unique to the current climate going on.
No, it's not.
Why don't we ask all 6 of those people to go through, evaluate their businesses?
If they want any type of rental assistance or forgiveness.
So I'm in agreement that any type of merchant that is struggling to make their monthly payment needs some sort of deep dive financial analysis and additional support. I do want to just make a statement that our community is kind of a one-for-all community. And typically when we take action as an organization, either at the staff or board level, we have to make those decisions inclusive of every type of merchant, or specifically for a merchant category like market house merchants. So I do want to indicate my concern of doing something specific just for like providing rent relief just for a specific number of merchants, which is, I don't think what I'm hearing, but I want to make sure we are looking at it wholly, that anything we do for one, we need to be able to do for all.
Yes, and I do think that was what we were focusing on it would have to be for all and not just for a specific.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right, because we want to penalize someone that's been doing, the right thing, because we know everybody's
Yes.
struggling.
Yes.
But we're just saying if someone's coming in asking for, rent relief or they need some additional assistance, it's difficult to make a decision and truly need the rent assistance. Are we belaboring? That needs to happen,
But
you know what I'm
these
saying,
plans
sooner than
call,
later.
excuse me, this is Brenda again. These plans call for rent relief for everyone, whether they need or not, or need being our term.
Yes. Correct. Yes.
Correct. The plans A, B, and C call for extended payment terms for anyone with a past due balance, meaning a current past due balance or a future past due balance within that term. And then D, E, and F, or any future amended options, would call for relief opportunities such as 25% reduction, a hold on step increases, or a month free.
So Tasha, I want to make, ask you, what are your thoughts? I definitely would, as a board member, don't want to increase rent, but also all these scenarios, or based on what do you think is the best thing to do?
Angela, I'm sorry, we're having a hard time hearing your statement. Could you state that again?
I said, I wanted, and then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As a board member, I definitely want us to defer all rate step increases through June 30th, 2021. But I also want to ask your opinion as the boots on the ground and the leader of the organization. Out of what you've heard in it, what do you suggest?
Okay, I think I heard what you're asking me. So I'm just going to reiterate because we're having a little bit of breakup here. So if I get this wrong, please correct me. That your
Okay.
statement was that you support holding the step increase through the rest of the fiscal year, which concludes June 30th, 2021. And then you
Yes.
asked what my position would be, kind of boots on the ground evaluation of what we need to do. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think we're in a really
Yes.
difficult situation. We all know that. The staff has candidly struggled through this for months. We're the ones getting the early morning, midday, and late night phone calls with the fear of not being able to pay your rent or, potentially losing your opportunity to retail at the market. We're also taking, candidly, all the punches. We have to look at the impact on the whole organization, and I'm trying to look at it from a small business perspective, from a metro agency, and as a taxpayer. And those are very different viewpoints. We need to be able to maintain stability and trajectory to financial security at the Nashville Farmers Market. This board brought me in several years ago, 7 years ago, with the intent of positioning the market for growth, developing the market culture and offerings to be more than what it was then, and to also achieve financial stability. And we have faced a lot of challenges in our past, and specifically over the past 7 years. And it seems like every time we get an inch ahead on achieving financial sustainability where we can see it, something happens. You know, we lose 4 acres of land, we lose a parking lot, we've got major construction going on, we hit a tornado, we get COVID. So it's difficult to contemplate our organization not being in a position to continue to achieve our goals, but in reality, we have to understand that our goals might have to be furthered. We might have to look at a longer-term plan of achieving financial security and stability. And I understand that. I think I've had that conversation with most of you, and I've had that conversation with elected officials as well as different members of the mayor's staff. Then I got to look at what's going on in the city. And you know that it's very difficult right now. You know, we're not just looking at this issue, we're looking at a referendum issue. And I have grave concerns about waiving any type of rent, whether it's a month or 25% or deferring a step increase, because it further reduces our ability to generate revenue to cover increased costs, not just this fiscal year, but when we start talking about delaying step increases, we're essentially pulling back from our financial stability plan that positions the market house merchants to pay enough rent to cover the cost to operate that part of our facility. And it does not just have a single year fiscal impact, it has a future year fiscal impact to where we're delaying that revenue generation another year. And that means that regardless of where we're at with COVID in the spring, our organization financially is in a situation where we cannot continue to plan or project revenue growth to cover rising costs. And we will have completely utilized our reserve balance in doing so, and will then need to go forward with asking the administration and the council to subsidize our organization once again for many years to come. So while I completely understand and empathize with every small business operating across America right now, and specifically in the community that we work in, I also want to see the Nashville Farmers Market be around for my kids. And I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Tasha. Is there one scenario that sticks out to anyone that we commend?
Can I just say something?
Yes, of course. Brenda, you may be on mute. We cannot hear you.
Okay. I hear Tasha's concerns. I will say, I think we're going to be dealing with at least another calendar year. And I want the farmers market to be there. I think it's better to be there with -1 to 3 market house merchants than -3 to 5 tenants. None of these choices are fabulous because B isn't fabulous. But, I just think that waive at least a month's rent. I also hate the idea of, I understand what Tasha's saying completely, but increasing rents at a time when, or at least market house rents, the sheds are doing well in terms of demand for their product, but the market house has problems. So I don't know if we can increase shed rents some. That's not a huge source of income, but asking market house tenants to increase their rents when I think we're going to be dealing with decreased market house business for at least a year. I'm just saying that as a former medical person. So anyhow, in brief, I think I'm in favor of at least waiving a month's rent, helping to keep as many tenants as we can. This freezing positions, we all understand how difficult that is. And that's where I am. But I think in order to keep a viable looking market house with decreased business for a year to come, I think that's kind of where we need to be. Thanks.
And Tasha, too, with that, if there is a waiver of rent, and that would affect our what we have in reserve, the funding balance, you have no word on whether we would be able to get that back. Is that part of the meeting also tomorrow, that you would be able to find out some of that information?
So we cannot recoup funds from Metro government COVID-19 fund for any loss of revenue.
Okay,
Our
any loss.
organization cannot.
Okay.
So what we can request, and we are requesting, is financial support for our organization to be able to provide additional relief to our merchants. A few of us have had some discussion about, well, why can't we have that discussion and then make this decision?
That was going to be my next question.
So we have been awaiting our opportunity to present to this particular committee for quite some time. And since publishing our agenda, we have been confirmed to be on tomorrow's agenda at noon for the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Advisory Committee for Metro Government.
Mm-hmm.
We have altered our original proposal to that committee, requesting approximately $950,000 for facility, security, and janitorial needs related to COVID, as well as to provide relief funding and technical assistance to all of the merchants at the Nashville Farmers Market. Not just the market house merchants. If we were to get any of that funding, which is not to be known, we do not know whether or not they are going to fund our request, but should we get it, we would then be able to allocate relief funding directly to each of our merchants, whether it be the garden center, the farm shed merchants, or the market house, equally and fairly to further our efforts to support them. But we cannot utilize those funds to cover anything that we choose to waive. If we were to waive rent, it is considered lost revenue. So we do not know if we will have a decision on our request following this committee meeting. This committee has acted very swiftly on other matters and other proposals. They've had anywhere between a 1-week turnaround to a 2-week turnaround on once proposals have been presented, discussion and approval or denial. I will say this, and if anyone else on the phone wants to share, there is a very limited amount of funds available in their remaining balance, and there is a great amount of need across Metro and within our county for those funds. So, you know, we have to go into that discussion understanding that we may or may not get appropriated funds to provide this level of support. And there are other avenues that Metro has already appropriated through Pathways Lending for merchants to be able to apply for additional relief support. And they may very well defer us to that program. Now,
Okay,
the reason why we have chosen to have this conversation at today's meeting versus waiting until after are twofold. One, we weren't sure if we were going to get to present, and now we know that we are. And two, the payment plan options that the board approved for us to offer our merchants expire at the end of this month. And so if the board were to choose to defer any of this discussion, what we do need is we need a board approval if we want to extend any of the payment terms for past due amounts to our merchant community. Because right now, as it stands, if they continue to be past due, they would fall into that scenario A. Scenario A is present day scenario. That if they remain past due at the end of September, they are in default.
Okay. Okay. And I think my question, I guess, to the board as a whole, with not knowing and not knowing when we would hear back regarding the meeting Tasha's having tomorrow, everything expiring at the end of the month, you want to just extend it? Or then wait till we hear back from Tasha, the meeting today, to go forward with the other, any type of waiver or deferment of the payment increases?
Yes.
So I just would like some feedback
Because
on that.
I think we extend the payments and then get feedback at the board meeting from Tasha. We'll definitely know by the end of October because those funds have to be expended by November. The contract is November the 15th.
Okay.
So Tasha, is that feasible?
Is that doable for you, Tasha?
Extend it?
Absolutely. So from the staff's perspective, the recommendation that we would prefer today is for you to take action on allowing us to move forward with an extension for our merchants. And if you want to defer the balance of the discussion about what we do next based on the result of the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee, I do think that that would be best intentions. we may very well need to consider calling for a specially called meeting if we were to be appropriated any funds through that committee, so that we could then determine how those funds would be utilized and approved for our merchant community based on what we would be receiving, if anything.
Yes, okay.
I agree. What is the turnaround if we do a special call meeting? What is the notice that has to be given?
48 hours.
Let me go ahead and say at least 48 hours. So as much notice as you can have would be great, of course.
Of course, okay. I say we go with that scenario.
Okay.
I can make a motion.
Okay, so Angela has made a motion to go with the recommendation to allow the staff to move forward with the extension of the past due payments, as well as we're going to defer the decision based off of any other thing on what the meeting is going to be for the oversight committee tomorrow with Tasha and her update. So may I get a second?
This is Tandy. I second that motion.
Thank you, Tandy. So as a roll call, we'll move forward. I, Priscilla Norman, approve.
I, Brenda Buttka, approve.
I, Angela Crane, approve.
I, Tandy Wilson, approve.
Thank you, everyone.
May I have a point of clarification?
Yes, Tasha.
Was there a specific date in your motion for the payment plan deferral or payment plan extension?
I think we could do it to the end of October, unless you were looking at another date, since we're just going to extend it till after this meeting that you're going to have tomorrow.
Oh, okay, I thought.
Go ahead, Angela.
I thought we were doing to December the 15th, but.
I'll step in here. I'll state that it's a lot of work to develop the payment plan. So if the board's intention is to eventually offer an extension to December 15th, I would encourage us to go ahead and amend that particular motion that you've approved to have a December date versus an October date.
Okay.
Simply because it causes us a great amount of work to develop those payment plans for each one of these individuals.
Right.
Sure. So we'll amend that to include the deferment date as of December the 15th.
All right, Madam Chair, can you go ahead and take that roll call vote again for the amended motion?
Sure, we sure can. I, Priscilla Norman, approve the amended version for the December 15th date.
I, Angela Crane Jones, approve.
Approve.
I, Tandy Wilson, approve.
Okay, great. Thank you. So did you have anything else to add in that section?
No, ma'am.
We will move forward with the board meeting calendar discussion and approval.
So I've received some feedback from various board members indicating that just due to shifts in their workplace environment, Wednesdays, the fourth Wednesday of every month is difficult for consistent participation. And several board members at this time have indicated that moving the meeting to the third or fourth Tuesday of the month at 9:30 a.m. effective October would make their schedule more accessible and available to attend the meetings consistently. So we would be asking the board to discuss your decision around moving the meeting to either the third or the fourth Tuesday of each month.
Thank you, Tasha. Is there a preference for the third or the fourth Tuesday of each month?
I can do the third Tuesday, but I cannot do the fourth Tuesday. I have board for my organization meeting
Okay.
on the 4th Tuesday.
And or Tandy?
I'm fine with either of those. The third, I think better, I think earlier in the month is better anyway for a variety of reasons. So I'm with the third.
And Tandy, how does that work for your schedule?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great, great, great. So may I get a motion to go ahead and we're going to change our board meetings to the third Tuesday each month, starting at 9:30, and the effective date will be in October.
I so move. This is Brenda Bucket.
Second, this is Tandy Wilson.
For our roll call, I, Priscilla Norman, approve.
I, Brenda Bucket, approve.
I, Tandy Wilson, approve.
I, Angela Crane Jones, approve.
Okay, thank you. We will move forward with the executive director's report.
You guys need some good news, don't you?
Please.
I would love that.
There is good news. It's not all hard news. Heather mentioned earlier the launch of this voucher program, which she has done a phenomenal job putting it together at lightning speed and beginning to implement that program. A few other things that we are working through right now is I am very excited to share very limited details of what I know right now, but the State Department of Agriculture has identified the Nashville Farmers Market as a recipient of one of their COVID agricultural grants. This is a grant. It is not a loan-based program, and it is specific to our response to supply chain disruption related to COVID-19. And we have provided them with a variety of proposals at which we will be meeting with them over the next few weeks to learn which one of those proposals they are interested in funding and to what degree. But we know that we will be receiving funding through the Tennessee Department of Ag to implement a supply chain response initiative related to COVID-19. One of the items that they have expressed interest in is the capital investment in developing a commercial production kitchen at the Nashville Farmers Market for farmers and producers to be able to produce value-added products that could then be sold through the Nashville Farmers Market as well as to other farm market programs and grocery channels. As you all know, we have a 1,400 square foot area of new retail leasable space in the market house that was our former waste center. And we have identified that 1,400 square feet as an area where this could occur. One of the challenges of the former layout of the Grow Local kitchen was that it wasn't set up to use as a production kitchen. It was set up really as a great retail pop-up space, and there was growing demand for it to be utilized as a retail pop-up space prior to the fire incident, which we're still recovering from. So if this is the program or the initiative that the Tennessee Department of Ag deems that's of most interest for them to fund, then we could then apply the grant that they're going to provide to us to fund the design and construction of that particular production space. So we'll be able to report more details to you about the funding balance as well, or the funding amount, and how it's to be appropriated and utilized. We do know that it will be done on a reimbursement process. They have given us some early indications that it will not be a check for a specific amount, but we will draw down from funds that they appropriate specifically to our agency for the projects that they approve. So we'll be sharing more news with you in October about that. That's very exciting. It also gives us a new opportunity to develop a revenue program around that specific type of kitchen space at the market, which we all know is of great demand in our community. Other than that, you know, we are wrapping up. I know every month we tell you we're wrapping up the tornado build back project. I believe we have a final punch list walkthrough coming up. We have had issues with the seal of the windows and some roofing issues that Charles has been working directly with the project management and contract team to remedy over the past few months, and it looks like we are nearing the finish line. Maria is preparing our organization as well as CPS and everybody on the FEMA team to do a review and analysis of our expenditures within that project and ensure that we're completely buttoned up with that. And the final two components of that project will conclude hopefully within the next 120 days, which is the restoration design build work of the Grow Local Kitchen, which was impacted by the fire incident that occurred while they were welding on the roof to repair an issue caused by the tornado. That particular incident is nearing the completion stage with the insurance company. They have presented a settlement offer to us. We are reviewing that settlement offer with them, hopefully next week by conference call. There are a couple of items in the settlement offer that we are asking them to reconsider. And once we get past that, we will go through the necessary Metro processes to accept those funds, both as an organization and through resolution with Metro Council, and then we can begin that build back project. The second project would be the insurance claim that is pending from the water damage caused by exposed roofing materials while they were building back the roof that was impacted by the tornado. And each of the businesses that were impacted were offered an opportunity to turn in their impact reports, both to their revenues, their repair work, their cleaning work, and their labor for that particular incident. And all of those merchants that chose to turn in those reports have been submitted to the insurance company of Medford Roofing, and we are awaiting payout directly to those merchants for those claims. Those claims range anywhere between $1,200 and $8,000 dependent upon the merchant's particular impact. And hopefully that will be resolved within the next 60 days, and those merchants will receive those payments.
That's great.
If the staff doesn't have anything else to add, that would conclude our report for this month.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else to add? Staff?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to some good news, I mean, I know, Brenda, I saw you recently at the Farmers Market, and it was a very busy day. So, I mean, I do want to just say that there are a lot of merchants that are having great days. For example, like Labor Day weekend, a lot of them shared with me that their sales for the day were record-breaking, not only since COVID began, but in the history of their business at the Nashville Farmers Market. So we do have business levels on the weekend that are rising steadily. I mean, it definitely looks completely different than when we opened in June, the inside. So I encourage everyone to visit on a weekend just to understand the current customer climate at the Nashville Farmers Market.
And may I say something more? I've been with a group from the League of Women's register voters at the farmers market through the month of September and into October. And it's been fantastic. The cooperation from the your cleaning crew has been wonderful. And we have registered between 20 and 40 people every Saturday. And this last Saturday, I think we registered people from 6 states who were visiting.
Oh, great.
That's really fantastic. It's been a wonderful,
Yes.
Tasha has worked with us, you know, to provide sandwich boards, and we have a great spot. And again, cleaning crew is just wonderful. They've just been fantastic. So I've got to say.
Thank you, Brenda.
Mm-hmm.
It's been great to have the crew there every Saturday, and apparently you guys are inspiring others, because we've had a request from a local fraternity to come and potentially do it on another day as well. So thank you for the work that you're doing out there in the community and for doing it at the market.
Thank you, everyone. And at this time, the meeting is now adjourned. Everyone have a great day and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.